What is up? We are back. This is Football Life presents the Audible on this Tuesday, June 15th, and it is NFC North Week. And if you're familiar with this program, then you know our very own Matt Bushnell is rocking the Bears. We have another recurring guest, Lucas Halbert, joining us representing the Vikings, and Leon Tompkins will be joining us soon with the Lions. But first, Matt, how you doing, man?
You know, in Dante's Inferno, they talked about the nine circles of hell. And right now, I'm pretty sure I'm right in the thicket of it, Randy. It is 116 degrees out here today. It's too damn hot.
Well, sounds like you live right in the middle of a desert, my friend.
I live
Lucas,
in the middle of
I assume
hell.
your climate is much more calm, much like mine. But how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, it's been hot here recently. A little cooled down a little bit today, I think. But yeah, doing good. Ready to get the summer over with and get football season started. Honestly,
summer over with already. I mean, the summer just started, my friend. So we're not even ready for it.
That's true.
Yeah. And then as your screen shows you, our friend Leon Tompkins is joining us, repping the Detroit Lions. I'm surprised you don't have the L on the logo, Leon. I mean, they've really embraced that culture now. But Leon, welcome back to the Audible. How you doing?
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, but the hat was the complete low light of the off season, but I'll let them slide.
All right. I'm glad. I mean, Leon, you're very optimistic about the Lions, and it's surprising because the Lions are in a franchise more than any that doesn't deserve any optimism. So I respect the fan in you, and I appreciate that aspect of it. But yeah, NFC North Week, like I said, we're gonna talk all things Vikings, Lions, Bears, and I'll be the lone Packers representative, so I'm sure I'll be unpopular amongst this group.
Oh, yeah.
But we're gonna start with the team that made news this week, and that is the Minnesota Vikings, and your team in purple there. Lucas, although you're repping Randy Moss, which I will say just quickly, great name and great wide receiver, so good choice there. And we're going to start off with Danielle Hunter getting a contract restructuring, and this guy is one of the more younger and better pass rushers in the league. And I don't know, Lucas, explain this to me, because he signed a 5-year, $72 million contract in 2018. And is this an extension of that, or is this just a pay increase?
From what I understood, it's and I haven't really looked at the details of it yet, but it was a contract restructuring and an extension. He wasn't happy with what he was getting paid. Felt like he had to out with the contract, but he did have the neck injury last year, so I think he kind of had to meet in the middle with the team. But yeah, it's I guess an extension to be paid more. I guess I don't think it's a restructure.
Yeah, and that's how I understood it.
I don't know. I haven't the details of it yet, though, but I know he was definitely not pleased with his compensation.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice deal in 2018, but then he quickly became surpassed and became just a middle of the pack contract for N. So he definitely wanted more money. Matt, you obviously are a fan of a team in the NFC North. You watch a lot of Vikings football. Danielle Hunter, given his age and his talent, I mean, this guy could be amongst a top 5 pass rusher if all things broke right for him. Don't you think?
No.
Why not?
I don't see it. I mean, we're talking top 5 pass rushers in the NFL.
I think he's got all the talent in the world to be just that.
All right, so let's just go through the list. Let's just go. And are we just specifically talking edge rushers or just pass rushers in general?
Pass rushers, yeah.
You got Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Chandler Jones. I mean, those are fun.
Yeah, I think it could be right there with Chandler Jones.
No. The talent's not. No. I mean, he's a good player. He's above average. He's good, but I don't see any traits where he dominates blocks on whether it's a double team, one-on-one. Obviously he's able to take advantage of those blocks, but I just don't see the dominance out of the double team, and that's what really separates these really top end pass rushers from a lot of the other guys.
So he missed all of 2020, but in the 2 years prior, he had 14 and a half sacks each season in his age 24 and 25 season. And in 2016, his age 22 season, had 12 and a half sacks. So this guy's already got 55 career sacks, and he's 27 years old. So, I mean, I think he's definitely a very talented player. Lucas, this is the kind of guy that can anchor your defense this year and in the future. I think it was so crucial for the Vikings to get this deal done, considering all the other holes that they have. As a Vikings fan, where do you stand on Danielle Hunter?
Definitely needed to get that deal done. Based on the talent, yeah, I honestly, I'll actually agree with Matt to a degree. Top 5 is probably a little ambitious, but I think that, I mean, when he's on, he's as good as anybody at the same time. I don't know, but it was very important to get it done. Don't really have a ton of help on the other end. We've definitely strengthened up the middle of the defensive line now with Michael Pierce coming back after the year off with COVID, bringing back, I guess not re-signing, but bringing back Sheldon Richardson in the middle, as well as signing Dalvin Tomlinson from the Giants. But yeah, we're not able to generate any sort of pass rush last year, and it showed badly. I mean, as well as having just a slew of injuries in the secondary, all added up to being 29th in defense. So Danielle is very important to us, creating a rush. And we also, Zimmer likes to do a double A gap blitz, and do those sorts of things. Yeah. And Danielle opens up so much of that and is able to draw some attention into the outside to allow Kendricks and Barr and, whoever the other line time, but to come up through the middle. So it was very important for us to get this done because we had no other option at this point, and we needed him to come back. So
I agree. Maybe top 5 a little too much of a stretch on my part, but hey, I like a player, and I like to think the world for them. All right, let's move on to some other Vikings-related issues. Leon, I'm going to go to you here because I love your quarterback takes in general. And the Vikings, I think, for the most part, any sort of optimism starts and ends with number 8, Kirk Cousins. Now, you've gotten a chance to play Kirk Cousins over the last few years. There's probably never been a chance and never been an instance in a Lions-Vikings game where you've actually feared playing Kirk Cousins, right?
Never. Ever. Like, I fear Matt
not even
Flynn.
A little.
No, not at all.
So I mean, I don't even know where to go from here. I mean, they're kind of stuck with Kirk Cousins for a little bit here. Matt, I'll go to you. This is your annual Bash Kirk Cousins segment, so I'm just going to let you take it away from here.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins is a bum-ass quarterback. He's been a bum-ass quarterback his entire career. If Blake Bortles was consistently good in garbage time, he would be Kirk Cousins. I mean, that's essentially what Kirk Cousins is here. Look, I've seen Kirk Cousins lose too many big games. And I know we can cite the defense, and I know we can go to other things. But to me, when the light shines the brightest on Kirk Cousins, he always comes up small. There's never that big moment where you're like, damn, Kirk really turned a corner. In his career, he's 1-5 against Matt Nagy and the Bears. And I mean, we're talking Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky as the Bears quarterbacks here, not exactly setting a high bar there. The Packers, well documented. Delvin Cook basically beat the Packers by himself last year, I believe, or the year before. I can't remember, when he went off and rushed for about 300 yards and 8 touchdowns. But to me, Kirk Cousins is just that kind of quarterback that is perfectly average. He's not good. He's not terribly bad. He's good enough to get your hopes up, and for you to overpay him consistently over the span of 5 years into thinking that you have a franchise quarterback and not being aggressive enough to move up in the draft and prevent the Chicago Bears from getting a guy that you like. Kirk Cousins is the jammed toe of the Minnesota football team. That's what he is. He's a pile of, basically he's a tire fire.
Oh, Lucas, now your time to rebuttal is here.
This was like a debate. I feel like just invite me on, shit on Kirk Cousins. No, I mean, yeah, both the things to say. I would agree if I was Leon as a Lions fan, Kirk Cousins wouldn't strike fear into me, and a lot of the points Matt brings up, especially with the big game type thing, it's absolutely true. What really holds Kirk back is just having the most god awful pocket presence I've ever seen in my life. He had, great arm, can stay in the pocket. I guess sometimes we forget too that he's had either Diggs and Thielen or Thielen and Jefferson at this point in time to always throw to. But I will say, as far as the big game goes, and there was even someone in the group that forgot this too. It's almost like we forget we won was it 2 years ago now, overtime win in New Orleans. Kirk Cousins won the playoff game. So he's able to do it in the right circumstances. And last year, we somehow pulled together 7 wins with the 29th ranked defense. I got to give him his credit there at the end. And in the last 10 games of the season last year, he had 25 touchdowns, 3 interceptions with a 113.9 quarterback rating, best in the league for the last 10 games. Of course, this means nothing to anybody because there's a million ways to try to convince, and I do it to myself, convince Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback and my quarterback. But yeah, in the moment, I don't know if he's good enough to push you over the edge. Definitely not without a loaded roster, which hopefully maybe we're getting there, but maybe too late by the time we make it there. So
yeah, I think
I do think though that Church has the ability.
I think my biggest issue with Kirk Cousins is he always gets sacked, and it goes exactly to your point, Lucas. His pocket presence is not good, and he gets sacked at the most inopportune times. It's when you can't afford to take those sacks, and I get it. It comes with the big play when you have receivers like Jefferson and Thielen and Diggs, and even Kyle Rudolph the year before, and with Dalvin Cook now even as a weapon. You can't take all those sacks at those moments. And I think that's what really comes out. I mean, he lost, and I hate pinning a playoff loss, but it spoke volumes that the 49ers didn't let Garoppolo throw for more than 8 times, and they still beat the Vikings. And granted, that was a really, really good defense. But if Kirk Cousins wants to be a top 5, top 10 quarterback in this league, I mean, you got to outplay Jimmy Garoppolo, who only threw 8 times. Like, what are we basing this off when it comes to Cousins? Rodgers is the benchmark in the NFC North. I think we can all agree to that. I mean, he's the best quarterback in the NFC North, has been ever since he started. No quarterback has ever been better than Rodgers in that division. Maybe not even in the NFL to a certain extent. I know the Tom Brady messages will be flooding in as people hear this, but when you look at Kirk Cousins, I've always felt like the pieces were there offensively. Offensive line last year was an issue, but the year before that, the offensive line was really good. The year before that, the offensive line was still okay. It was probably the second best in the division, good enough to win the division, I should say here. But where is, that quarterback has to be the guy. That's the face of your franchise. That's taking you over the hump. And I feel like that's what's always been holding the Vikings back. Last year, yes, it may have been the 29th ranked defense, but when are we going to hold him to the same standards as a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles, Matthew Stafford? Stafford gets killed yearly by us for not delivering in the biggest of moments. And here we have little Kirk Cousins, a little footnote, because I think we expected out of Cousins, where Stafford, we know how good he is. Stafford at his best is fantastic. And Cousins at his best is just a guy.
I don't think Kirk Cousins is, I would say, probably the most average quarterback we have in the league. I certainly think he's elevated by the talent he has around him. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. I mean, these guys are studs. Kyle Rudolph for a very long time has been one of the more steady tight ends you could have. And to me, he has been a beneficiary of the talent around him. So the thing I'm going to knock Kirk Cousins for, and it's more of a knock on the Vikings, is just looking at his salary numbers right now. He is owed $21 million this year, and he has a $31 million cap hit. And if they were to cut him, he'd be a $76 million cap hit somehow. And then also next year, he's under contract for $35 million and a $45 million cap hit. And obviously, we know he signed, what was it, a 4-year deal, all completely guaranteed, which was unprecedented at the time. It was a lot for a guy like Kirk Cousins, but when you're the Vikings and you need some sort of consistency, it's a guy who's steady, who's going to be under center each and every week. There's value in that, I would say. And it's not like he's been a complete disaster. Like Lucas said, they made the playoffs. They had a big win in New Orleans. I mean, success is different to each team. To me, that's a success. But in order for the Vikings to really take the next step, Kirk Cousins has to take advantage of this big three that he has around him. And those three guys are so talented and they're so good, and they truly do elevate the play of Kirk Cousins. And that's why the Vikings are a very much boom or bust team to me. Their offensive line is shaky. Their secondary is a little shaky, but they have high-end players at key positions in general. So I'm going to pull up the Vikings schedule for this year, and I'm going to have an open dialogue on some predictions. Leon, I'm going to want you to go first here because I haven't heard from you in a minute.
I put Kirk Cousins and like Derek Carr in the same category. They both make every start, but you expect so much more out of them. You know, it's very, very frustrating.
Well, I'm being told I can't share my screen, so if Matt Bushel wants to allow me.
I turned it on. You should be able to share it now.
So I'm going to share this screen here and pull up the schedule. I don't know. Can you guys see the schedule here? It's the big purple picture.
Oh, yeah.
Matt, I mean, you look at the Vikings. You look at the Vikings roster, Matt, and honestly, we'll talk about the rest of the division. Like the Vikings, to me, have at least kind of an identity. Like they sort of know what they are. They lack big time in the secondary, the back end. Like that concerns me. But in the offensive line with Kirk Cousins' limitations concerns me. But it would not shock me if this team found themselves in a wild card situation just based on the other talent that they have. Now, I know you're down on Kirk Cousins, but what do you make of the Vikings roster as a whole?
It's tough, really, when you take a look at the Vikings, because obviously they needed to upgrade in a lot of areas, because when their offensive line started breaking down, so did their defense. We know that they had a slew, and I mean a slew of third-round picks. Hunter coming back helps, but there's still some major holes here for the Vikings defensively, and that offensive line, we still have to see them be better. The schedule is not very favorable in those first 4 games outside of the Bengals. So, you got to go. You're playing Arizona, you're playing the Seahawks, you're playing the Browns. Very, very tough opponents. I have to see Kirk Cousins win some big games here. I like the roster overall. It's a fringe playoff team for that 7th wild card. I don't think they're going to get the 4, 5, or 6, the 5 or 6 wild card spot. I do think there's better teams overall in the conference, but we go back to the biggest elephant in the room, and I know we're going to talk about the Packers. It literally depends on where Aaron Rodgers is at week 1, on where the Vikings fall, because honestly, this team could win the division. This team could make a wild card. There's too many variables right now. So are we picking game by game, or are we just going to go there?
No, you don't have to do that. I think that exercise will take a little while, but if you want to sit there, look at the schedule for a bit. Leon, I'm going to come to you now with the Vikings schedule and overall roster construction. How high or low are you on the Minnesota Vikings this year?
Ooh. I see 7 wins. I mean, I don't know what to make of the Bengals early on, only because, Burrow coming back to the ACL tear. And it's been stated as far as Rodgers' wild card, but early schedule is not favorable, but I do see if I would have like a sneak and win somewhere in the schedule, maybe the Steelers, the Chargers. So low point 7, high point 10.
Okay. Now, Lucas, you are the Vikings fan here, so I assume optimism is coming from you here. But I think it's contingent on what Matt Bushel said. If Aaron Rodgers isn't the quarterback of the Packers, this team could win the NFC North this year.
Yeah, that's kind of the caveat here. I see about if I got up, yeah, probably about 10, maybe push it to 11 wins. Realistically, probably more like 9, 10. I'll be obviously a little bit more optimistic in the homer here, but yeah, I think they're early on. You got to go through the ringer against well, not necessarily the ringer, but the Bengals and Cardinals, Seahawks and Browns there, and you would almost prefer the Seahawks and Browns to be. Well, actually, I'm sorry, the first two are away games. My bad. So yeah, I guess that's tough starting off 2 on the road, but those are probably the more 2 winnable games rather than Seattle and Cleveland, I would guess. But and then a pretty tough road there at the end, playing the Bears twice and as well as the Packers. So yeah, I go a little bit more optimistic with them this year. I do like a lot of the moves they made. We talked about their secondary being awful last year. Yeah, Patrick Peterson, bring back Mackenzie Alexander, Xavier Woods, signed Bashad Breeland. So I think, and obviously you already have Harrison Smith and good guys that we drafted last year with Cam Dantzler. But yeah, I'll go a bit more optimistic, but I'll go super optimistic. No Rodgers, 11 with Rodgers. I guess it doesn't really affect our win total but a ton, but I'll say 9 or 9 with Rodgers, 11 without Rodgers. There we go. That's what we're trying.
All right. I'm looking at the schedule, Matt, and real quick, I'm just going to say it looks like a pretty not an easy schedule by any means. I actually think it's a pretty difficult schedule. You got some difficult runs and difficult back-to-backs here. But I do believe in the Vikings, and our Matt Nealand in the comments, said that they would have been 12-4 last year, the league average defense. He kind of is supporting the Vikings notion here where, get Danielle Hunter back, you get some of the guys back from COVID, and they should be able to be a team to be reckoned with in this division. Now, to me, it's all about Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to say that for each and every one of these teams in this preview. So unfortunately, the timing of this isn't going to work out so well for us, which we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. But as of now, Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Packers until I'm told otherwise. So I'm going to operate as if that is the case. But I still think the Vikings are a 10-win football team. I think they can go 10-7. Get a reminder, there's a 17-game season, and I think they could be a wild card team. And if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, I assume they win the division, and I think the Vikings could easily be a wild card team. Now, Matt Bushnell, you're marinating on the schedule a little bit here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to go through, and our good friend Corey Decker is going to appreciate this, but just the list of quarterbacks that they have to play. Yeah. Joe Burrow, who's fantastic. Yeah. Kyler Murray, who's fantastic. Russell Wilson, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Baker Mayfield on a very, 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 very good Super Bowl aspiring Browns team. And then they get Jared Goff, and then they get a break. But then they follow it up with Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they see Trey Lance against the 49ers. And then, they kind of get a lull right there. But, I think the Lions beat them once. Until Kirk Cousins can prove that he can consistently beat the Bears, I don't see them beating the Bears. So I'm going to say they go 7-9, and I think they end up 3rd in the NFC North.
7-9-1, 7-10.
Oh, geez, I forgot 16. Yeah, 7-10. They'll go 7-10.
I'm just trying to get our viewers used to the fact that they're not even numbers anymore. Yeah, all right, so that's the Vikings right here. We spent 25 minutes talking about them, so we're going to move on. And Lucas, if you're up for it, we'd love to have you stay on here and talk about the rest of the teams.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now. And it is time for our friend Leon Tompkins to shine as he does so brightly on a regular basis. Leon, this has got to be weird for you. This is the first time in a decade that you're starting a season and number 9, Matt Stafford, is not your starting quarterback. Just talk to me about your approach coming in now.
Well, it hurts. I grew up, with Stafford, obviously with Harrington before, but a franchise that has a long-standing quarterback, it's very hard to keep, very hard to find. But I think he was a victim of bad luck and bad management. You had Hall of Famer and Calvin Johnson come and go. He got stuck not being able to win the big game. He had a chance to win the division against the Packers, and I think, and I'll say it every time, that playoff game against the Cowboys, I think, sealed this team's fate. But he dedicated his career and his life to the team. Played injured, played hurt, and I thought he got unfairly treated by most of the Detroit media and media in general, as far as his will to win. But it was time to move on. The long-term picture, the window was closing for Stafford. I just think he has about 5-6 years maybe, and for this rebuilding window, it's not enough for Stafford. So I wish him luck in LA. People get to see what I've been seeing the entire time on a much larger scale.
I'm a big Stafford supporter. You know that. I've always thought he was the real deal, and just kind of got thrown into an awful situation in Detroit. But now you have a new guy in town here, and his name's Jared Goff. All last year, Leon, you have been advocating for the Lions having a top 5 offense. It's been a running joke that I love that you are still sticking to your shtick. What sort of optimism do you have with Jared Goff now under center in Detroit?
Well, I know that he's a proven commodity. Inconsistent as he is, I know he has the ability to throw a deep ball. I know he has the ability to hit some receivers. And what we do have is an elite tight end. We do have an elite running back in Swift. And what they did do, which I did like, they built in the trenches, built up this offensive line, and maybe give Goff some time to maybe read make proper reads and go to deep ball. So, and from what I'm hearing, Goff has more insight into the offense. So, chip on his shoulder. I'm highly optimistic. If it doesn't work out, they can cut bait in 3 years. It's probably the right time frame anyway. But I like this. I like the move.
Certainly feels like a transitional QB to me. Matt Bushnell, I'm going to go to you. I assume you're not the biggest Jared Goff guy, but what do you make of the post-Matt Stafford era in Detroit so far?
It felt like it was a long time coming. Stafford, for as good as he was, he definitely never held the Lions back. I don't think we can hold everything against the Lions at the quarterback position. What we can hold against the Lions is their front office, which is talent identification, roster building, and coach selection. Firing Jim Caldwell was the biggest mistake that this franchise made, and that pretty much doomed the Matt Stafford era, just because Caldwell built a culture. Things were changing where you're like, man, Lions may not be a team to mess with too much longer. The offense made sense. It didn't put them in bad spots. And then you hire Patriot boy, Matt Patricia, who complete joke. And they built something, and then they just decided to tear it all down because they thought, they had the next coming of Bill Belichick, and they had the next coming of the Pillsbury Doughboy instead. So, I love what they did. I love Motor City Dan Campbell. I love the attitude as a football meatball. Like, if you're a meatball football fan, this guy gets you going, man. He gets the engines revving and everything. The issue is, can he coach now as a head coach? He was with the Saints. I have to imagine that he has really good football acumen. So if he gets the players to buy in, and I love their philosophy. Penei Sewell falling to them at 7 was a gift, beyond all gifts. So they get their left tackle for the next 10, 11, 12 years in a division with guys like Danielle Hunter and Khalil Mack. Obviously, Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith for the Packers. So they need to address that. But I like the direction. They're rebuilding, and they're not taking shortcuts this time. Are the Lions going to be good this year? Probably not. But I think if they build and sustain a culture, if Dan Campbell can put in a football type culture, I think they're in good shape.
So that's my next topic here is Dan Campbell, because he kind of came in, it was a surprising hire, I think, for most people. Kind of came in and was like, we're going to attack kneecaps and bite off heads and scratch and claw and said all these football cliches. I didn't know if he was a homeless man or some kind of just savage or whatever. But nonetheless, he's coming in saying all these things. And it sort of reminds me of what Joe Judge did last year. He came in and said a bunch of things and not everyone wanted to hear. And that's great. You can say everything, but then you have to do it. So I guess that's my question, Leon, is like, what are your thoughts on Dan Campbell? Do you think he can actually come in here and establish a culture that, your previous coaches failed to do in the meantime, and sort of build something for the future that you can actually say like, hey, I'm proud to be a Lions fan?
Now, I've seen this episode before here in New York with Rex Ryan.
Yes.
Comes in, does a lot of talking, and for the first couple of years, he has some success. Now, what I do like, he does have a pretty good staff around him. Mark Brunell, Aaron Glenn, Anthony Lynn. So he has the pieces to buy into his system and name recognition. And so far, from what I'm hearing from training camp, everybody's buying in. So what was also missing from these coaches was some personality. You get the Steve Mariucci's come in and just all business, stoic. But what I do like about Campbell, he's embracing Detroit, the grit and grind of Motor City. Like I always say, Detroit versus everybody. So it's more or less us against the refs. So I like what I'm hearing so far. Yeah, hell, I'm buying in. I know this team probably won't be any good, but hell, it should be very exciting watching them and to see some effort. 6 years is a lot, but it does go inside with the GM hire. So I like the direction this team is going in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you're buying yourself time. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, you almost have to do this if you're Detroit. If you believe that you got the right guy. Well, let's face it, when Patricia was hired, I think I'm not sure how many people like that hire. I thought it was a joke to begin with.
Yeah.
Just from all that. But if you believe Dan Campbell's that guy and he just wowed you in the interviews, the first 3 years are going to be painstaking because one, you have to identify a quarterback. All right. We all know that Jared Goff isn't that guy anymore. He's nice, he's going to make a very nice career as a middle tier, bottom tier quarterback that eventually develops into a bridge quarterback, like probably an Andy Dalton or a Kirk Cousins, both who are in this division now. But I think the things that you have to see with Dan Campbell is, all right, we're going to give you 3 years of a blank slate, develop the young guys, and let's see where we're at in 3 years. The 3 years are just chalk. They don't care about the record. The record doesn't matter. You want to see progress at this point. And then you start evaluating Dan Campbell on wins and losses in years 4 and 5. And then if you want to keep him around for year 6, you can.
Agreed. And I like where they went with the roster, with the lines. Michael Brocker's coming in, re-signing Okwara. I mean, what they did in the draft with the 2 interior linemen. The biggest problem for this team was getting a pass rush, and they clearly addressed it this offseason. Maybe Trey Flowers can finally earn some of that cash, and they're going to move him over to outside linebacker. So, I mean, I guess, it goes in waves now, so I like the idea of the direction they're going in, and like you say, 3 years of a blank slate. I just want to see some progression and see where, because this was the worst ranked defense in the league. I mean, it can't be any worse, right?
No, definitely not. Lucas, I want to get your thoughts on this new look Lions team here. Obviously, they're rebuilding, but when you look at their roster, there's some good, and then there's also some really bad. Talk to me about your thoughts on the Lions.
Well, I think Leon touched on for a second with Goff. I think maybe he kind of comes in a little bit of chip on his shoulder. The pressure, maybe the culture. You come in top pick into LA, make the Super Bowl early like they did, just have an awful showing. I think maybe the guy needed a change of scenery on top of the fact that I think the chip on the shoulder, I think that, maybe that's a cliche, maybe that's, not really a thing, but I think that will help him out a lot. As far as Campbell goes, talking about some of the things he brought in as a more high energy coach and that sort of thing. It seems like the type of coach like Dan Campbell either comes in and it works wonders and, you win a lot of football games, or it crashes and burns way harder than a more stoic coach would have. But I think the culture definitely is a thing that they need to have change. And if he's coming in actually, instilling some pride, making people, giving the Lions a different look, kind of like what we've seen with the Browns. I think that's a positive thing. I don't have huge high hopes for them this season, but I think they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think being competitive is a big step moving forward into this rebuilding process. I don't know how you could expect to win a ton of games here, but overall, you see your guys respond to the coach and be competitive, and you play sound football. I think those are all things that you can improve on going forward. Leon, I'm going to start with the roster here, but I'm going to start with the good. The Lions' offensive line is really good. I think I don't think people realize that. Taylor Decker got signed. Frank Ragnow got signed. Penei Sewell coming in as a highly touted rookie. The guards, Jonah Jackson is solid, and Vitae is pretty solid too. He's probably the weak spot of the line in general, but overall, that's a good unit to have, and I think they will pave the way for DeAndre Swift to have a good year. I think Dan Campbell's the kind of guy who's going to try to establish the run. I think their interior defensive line is good. I think, like you said, they address that need in the offseason, and bringing back Okwara could add that pass rushing element that you need. Jamie Collins at linebacker is solid, but that's pretty much all the good to me. Yeah. Where it gets bad is your pass catchers. I would say outside of Hawkinson, you're relying on Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perriman, rookie Amon-Ra St. Brown, which he could be a stud. We don't really know yet, but you need second. And the worst part than that even is the secondary, and I think you really need to see a huge improvement from Jeff Okudah, Quentin Dunbar, Aruzier. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but in general, the safeties and corners need work big time. But this isn't the year that you're ready to compete. Overall, I think you have a solid core that you can build off of, mixed with some good and bad.
Agreed. And this is where, now you have the pleasure of having Kenny Golladay in your locker room now. But from late last year, I did see we look out for a guy, Quintez Cephas, big target, 6'7", trying to establish him late. But I think this team, like you said, is going to establish a run, really work off play action. And what I believe is they're going to really try to work the deep ball with this O-line. But the secondary is always going to be work, but you can mask that with an elite pass rush. And I think that's where they're going to head. Maybe make a move if they surprise some people in the around the trade deadline and make a move for maybe Xavier Howard or a top flight corner. But I honestly don't expect much from the secondary, but top 5 offense still.
I love that you're still on that. All right, I'm going to share the schedule again like I did with the Vikings. And Matt, I'm going to come to you now. And I want you to just marinate a little bit on this, maybe discuss, the roster we just talked about a little bit here. But the Lions schedule, all these schedules are going to be similar because they play the same conferences and everything based on where they finished in the division. But overall, rebuilding Lions team, do you think they could be scrappy this year?
I definitely think they're going to be scrappy. It's not going to be a fun team to play per se, but the defense still needs a lot of work. Like Leon said, they have to find a cornerback that can shut down a team's number one. Offensively, they don't really have any wide receivers that put fear into your heart, especially losing Kenny Golladay. So the wide receiver core needs some development. It's going to be hard to generate a pass rush on this team. So they're really going to depend on the running game. So it's going to be a battle. I mean, Dan Campbell's going to build this team where it's going to be a fist fight every week. I don't see them getting blown out of very many games, but I don't see them winning very many games. And I'm saying they're going to go 3-14.
Wow, that's on the low end here. I mean, look, if you're 3-14 and you don't really get blown out by many games, I think Lions fans would take the top pick and hope to build off of whatever core you have there. Lucas, you're looking at the schedule here. Obviously, they play your Vikings twice, but overall, Lions are going to be fighters, I think. And I don't know how many wins that's going to equal, but nonetheless, if you're playing them, you'd like them to be an easier win like they have been in the past, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when we talk about that culture change, it kind of maybe even starts when you still have a 3-4 win season, but those, I guess now that would be 13, 14 losses, or those each of those teams are saying, man, they were no joke. That was tough for 60 minutes. So I still have them kind of in that range. Maybe 5 wins. I have to really sit here and pick out the wins, I guess. But yeah, I think that them being on the up and up here, the schedule is obviously similar to the Vikings, similar to the rest of the divisions, pretty tough. I'd probably keep them in that 4-game range, 4 or 5 wins maybe. I think they have a little improvement, but still not quite there yet.
Yeah, I would say if you win 4 or 5 games, and Jared Goff is the reason why you lose most of them in your secondary, for example, let's just say, you could take that and say, all right, well, he's a stopgap transitional quarterback. This is temporary. Let's keep building off of what we have. And I'll say this as a Giants fan, we kind of did that last year, but except they're committing to Daniel Jones long-term, it appears. Giants went 6-10, were competitive in so many games, really only got blown out once, had a chance at the end for the playoffs, which, that part's a joke, but nonetheless, it's still games that matter down the stretch. The Lions might not have games that matter down the stretch, but if they're in all these games and not getting killed, and these guys come in there and are competitive each and every week, like that's going to go far. And maybe we can even get an entertaining game there on Thanksgiving, if that's too much to ask. Leon, you're looking at the 2021 schedule here. What's the scale at? Optimism, top 5 offense, top 3 offense here. How many wins?
12-5.
Oh, stop it.
12-5. Offense wins in this league, and that's what's going to happen. Jared Goff is just going to, be in the top 3 in passing yards, and Swift will, be a dual threat. Look out for him in your fantasy leagues, and TJ Hawkinson will make it back-to-back Pro Bowls.
I just want to piggyback off of something real quick. And this is the most positive thing I'll say about the Lions this entire year. This is the one team where it doesn't matter if Aaron Rodgers is in the division or out of the division.
That's positive?
Yeah, it's positive.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Hey, man, it says something that Aaron Rodgers doesn't change your trajectory in this division.
You don't think they could beat the Packers one time without Aaron Rodgers?
We're talking the Packers with Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. That defense for the Packers is still okay. That's a good roster. I don't think people give the Packers roster overall enough credit. Aaron Rodgers would be an awful loss for them, and it would definitely change them, but they're not finishing last in this division without Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's the Lions spot. They have the 4th spot on lock.
I tend to agree. Leon, I'm going to be in Vegas for the draft, and I have a feeling your Lions are going to be picking pretty high up there, unfortunately. But 12-5 is one hell of a prediction here on June 15th, and I can't wait to revisit that with you throughout the season.
Play that tape.
Yeah,
well, Leon, if you want to go ahead, man.
Oh no, I said we'll definitely play that tape.
Yeah, we have plenty of tape that we have to go back and play for everyone. That's for sure. We're gonna move on to Matt Bushnell's Bears, but Leon, if you're willing, we'd love to have you stick around with Lucas and keep talking about the rest of these teams in this division.
Yeah, sure. I'll stick around. I'm waiting for Brooklyn to play at 8:30. So.
Yeah, all right. So this is dedication, folks. In the thick of the NBA postseason. Ball is life. Not even ball is life anymore. Basketball life. Step back host Leon Tompkins is on the football show in June. That's just dedication. So we greatly appreciate that here. All right. It's time for many of the people of the group's favorite or most anticipated segment, I should say. Matt Bushnell famously melting down during the draft after the Chicago Bears drafted Justin Fields, trading up with the New York Giants to number 11 overall. Matt, I feel like your thoughts and opinions have changed since on Justin Fields, but nonetheless, the Bears in general have an interesting quarterback situation with Andy Dalton, with Justin Fields, and hey, you still have Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles on the roster here. So what's the deal in Chicago in that quarterback room?
I think it's expected that Nick Foles is going to be moved before training camp begins. The Jets just make too much sense for Nick Foles to go to. They don't have any other options. And obviously the Bears are not going to get anything back for Foles. I just think they want that salary relief. But the plan is to get Foles out of there and then lock up Allen Robinson long term, because Allen Robinson wants to come back. They want him back. The deal will get done as soon as they can move Nick Foles, I believe. At least that's been a lot of the rumors circulating around Chicagoland. As far as the quarterback room goes, I really don't have an issue with it. And I don't think many Bears fans should expect a lot of things coming out of the first 8 or 9 weeks from Justin Fields. I think the plan is, and I honestly do think the Bears are going to stick to this. There is no way that Justin Fields is starting week 1. So I think Andy Dalton's going to get a long look. It depends. The things you hear about Justin Fields is leadership, intelligence, hard work. Some of the things that were questionable in the pre-draft process, some people question his work ethic. I have no idea where that came from, but we heard it. And obviously that has been proven wrong with the Bears. He's the first one there, last one gone. All he wants to do is talk football. My thoughts on Fields varies because you see all the intangibles there. Like Justin Fields is like the guy you want. He is a football nerd. He doesn't want to talk about anything else but football, but that can also lead to other things. It doesn't guarantee success. So I'm taking the approach of wait and see. I didn't like the trade, giving up that much capital. But if you had other people that were going to take Fields that were going to move up, I mean, the Bears had to get in front of the Vikings because I do think the Vikings would have taken Justin Fields at that point. So the deal had to get done. But if Matt Nagy's the guy, and this is my problem, he has to be there for 2 years. When you let Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace trade that first round pick next year, and I complained a lot about the coaching last year. I had a lot of issues with what Matt Nagy did and the roster construction of Ryan Pace. And like I've always said, Ryan Pace in rounds 2 through 7, gold, money. I love the guy. This team's littered with really good players from those picks. It's the first rounders, the Kevin Whites, Leonard Floyds, Mitchell Trubisky's that have crippled this team from being a Super Bowl contender to getting no respect. Everybody has downplayed the Bears. I told everyone last year that the Bears were going to go 11-5 and make the playoffs. The Bears went 9-7. They made the playoffs. So, you know what? I wasn't exactly wrong in the positioning, but I was wrong in the wins. But they should have won 2 games that they lost. So overall, I mean, I take a look at this team. I think defensively they got worse. They're older. Offensively, I don't know if they're that much better. How do we view Andy Dalton as a quarterback? I know he got killed, absolutely destroyed. But keep in mind, Andy Dalton has done something no Chicago Bears quarterback has ever done, and that's throw for 4,000 yards. So that's something. I mean, it's going to be interesting in Chicago. There's going to be storylines to watch all year.
Lucas and Leon, look, you guys are both on our draft special. You remember the reaction, an all-time audible moment of Matt Bushnell just sinking in his chair, throwing the headset off. What a turn of events that Matt Bushnell's coming around on Justin Fields. What happened?
Well, I think he went through all the 5 stages of emotion, so we come full circle. Congratulations, Bushnell.
I'll say when they took Fields, I mean, without even knowing that my team was also trying to take Fields, I was immediately like, oh, okay, that's kind of like that's a different style of quarterback than what I'd expect. You know, actually bringing in someone who could be a little bit dynamic and move around a little. I guess Trubisky could, but I mean, you know, like, I'm actually not. I've kind of been sold on Fields basically since they got him. I really think I think it's a good fit. I don't know. Let's see what Nagy does with him. But yeah, I really think I really actually like that pick. I still do.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you were a supporter of it at the time, Matt. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I agree with Lucas here. I mean, there's things like, here's my issue with Fields. The tape is outstanding. You watch his Ohio State game tape, you take out Northwestern, you know, he played the Alabama game with broken ribs. And I mean, I've played with a crack rib and, you know, I was garbage. I wasn't very good, but Fields was still pretty good. He was a high-end quarterback against basically an NFL defense in Alabama. You know, so this is the part where I just get so confounded on. It's Fields what I see on tape against, you know, a lot of the teams. Is he the same guy against Clemson, or is he the guy against Northwestern? And there's a lot more game film out there of him torching teams like he did Clemson. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he acclimates. I mean, from everything that I've heard and read, I mean, minicamp, he's been a star. He controls the huddle. He gets everyone's in the right position. They're saying he knows the majority of the playbook, but he still struggles in some areas, as any rookie would. I think the difference between him and Trubisky never felt like he had this aura of confidence. Trubisky was always kind of like that. Oh, you know, I'm just kind of here. You know, he wasn't a big moment quarterback. He had one outstanding game against a terrible Buccaneers offense, and then he played pretty good against the Dallas Cowboys team. And the thing that stands out about Trubisky is he played one season at North Carolina against so-so competition. Fields has played against some of the best defenses college football has had to offer that were thrown at him. So it just, if the Bears can coach him upright, and we believe the Bears are a good team, and I think people downplay the offensive weapons on this roster. Darnell Mooney's a budding superstar. I don't care what anyone says. I believe that kid. That kid torched Jalen Ramsey twice, and he couldn't get a quarterback to throw him the deep ball. Fields has excellent deep ball accuracy. So if he can extrapolate that, I like Jimmy Graham. And you laughed at me, Randy, when I told you Jimmy Graham was going to be good for this team, and he was good for the Bears.
He was. You were right.
So I like the tight end room. I like David Montgomery. This offense isn't as bad as everyone's making it out to be. If Justin Fields can play quarterback at an NFL level like he did in college, it goes from a fringe playoff team to, you know, a Super Bowl contender in a year.
All right, we're going to touch on the roster here in a second. First, Leon, I'm going to start with you. What week is Justin Fields starting quarterback for the Bears? Because I think they're going to roll Andy Dalton out there for a solid month. So I'm going to say Justin Fields by week 5 is the quarterback of the Bears. What say you?
I'm definitely going to say week 6.
Okay.
Don't wait.
Lucas.
I'm going to say week 2. I think they'll get one game by Andy Dalton and say no. I don't know who they played week 1, but I don't know. It's going to be quick. I don't think they can keep him off the field. If he is what they say, if they like him as much as they say they like him.
Matt Bushnell?
Yeah, that Rams game's week 1. So I'm not sure if you want to feed Justin Fields to Aaron Donald week 1. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow. I mean, if you read coach speak, Matt Nagy has come out in previous weeks and said, you know, Andy Dalton is our number 1 guy. He's starting week 1. And today it was kind of a curious quote. It was like, you never know what can happen. And it's just like, you're starting to see those chinks in that armor. So I'm not saying it's impossible that Justin Fields starts week 1. I think they're going to slow play this. I still say he starts after the bye against the Ravens, because I think the Bears can tread water to the best of their abilities before the bye week.
It'll be interesting to see how the Bears handle that and Justin Fields' successful basically be all up to Matt Nagy at that point. So anyway, to me, the Bears are actually on the up and up because they're getting a bunch of help back on the defensive side of the ball that they did not have last year. We talked about how Eddie Goldman opted out. Akeem Hicks kind of riddled with the injury bug last year, although a year older, still an effective player. Robert Quinn, they paid him a lot of money. They really need to get worse. Yeah, they really need to get more out of him, and I expect that he will. Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan is a damn good linebacking core, and Roquan Smith is one of the best out there. The secondary, I mean, you're losing. What's the guy's name? Kyle Fuller hurts, but Desmond Trufant in the mix now. Eddie Jackson still there. Deshaun Gibson. I'm optimistic on the defense. To me, this is going to come down to the quarterback play and the offense. And I keep seeing that David Montgomery is a breakout candidate for the Bears. Allen Robinson, I'm the biggest Allen Robinson fan there is. I absolutely think he's a stud, a number one of all number ones. And I'll take your word on Mooney. I know that he did beat the Jalen Ramsey. Those highlights seem to play all the time, but I need to see him established as a number two because Anthony Miller hasn't gotten the job done. No. And Damiere Byrd feels like just a slot guy who's like your traditional number three receiver. But Matt, where the biggest concern for me is the offensive line for the Bears, which could destroy any sort of progress you want Justin Fields or David Montgomery to make. And you draft Tevin Jenkins, which certainly helps, or we assume helps. But overall, this unit remains. You wish more would be here for the Bears. So, you think this offensive line unit is bad enough where it could prevent the Bears from being as good as you even think they could be?
Actually, I think the offensive line's a hidden gem for this team.
Wow.
James Daniels got hurt week 4, so he was out, and he's coming back. And he the time of his injury, Pro Football Focus had him ranked as a top 5 guard in the entire NFL. So the first 5 weeks, he got hurt against Tampa. I'm trying to think what week they played Tampa. I think it was week 5.
5 or 6, I think it was.
So he got hurt in that Tampa game, and he was lost for the year. He tore his pec. So you get James Daniels back. Sam Mustipher is an emerging center. Cody Whitehair is a well-established interior offensive lineman. So the big weakness, obviously, was the tackles last year. They were able to run David Montgomery inside quite a bit, but Charles Leno and, I forget who, it was between Bobby, Massey, but they moved Jermaine Ifedi to right tackle later on in the year, and the offensive line actually played pretty well towards the end of the last year. And we can argue competition because that does matter, but the offensive line did okay. It's going to hinge on Tevin Jenkins being able to hold down the left tackle spot. That's not an easy spot for a rookie to play. Tevin Jenkins is a nasty dude. I've watched his tape. He's big, he's strong, he's a mauler. I also like Larry Borum, the kid they drafted out of Missouri, I believe. He's 6'6", 340 pounds, just a mammoth human being. So they wanted to get nastier on the offensive line. I like this offensive line. I don't think it's going to be as bad as people are making it out to be, and I don't think it's going to hold them back. I'll go as far as to say is I think the defense is going to cause some issues for this team.
Okay. Lucas, I'm going to go to you. You obviously are high on Justin Fields. You said this much. What do you make of the rest of the Bears roster here? Because I think that there's talent pretty much all around here.
Yeah, especially when you highlighted the linebacker. Of course, the Bears are always known for the linebackers, Smith and all those guys. Defense looks solid. I have to agree that the question mark, as it usually is with the Bears, is the offense. I think a good running game, if you can able to get Montgomery going this year and actually really establish that, so you have your good defense and you have your running game, truly how the Bears want to play. Maybe that helps out Fields a ton and opens up things for him, or hopefully it doesn't do the opposite where it kind of stifles his growth. But I think if they're able to get Montgomery going this year too, that'd be a big plus for them. But overall, yeah, I mean they've got some talent here, mostly on the defensive end, I would say. But I could see that the Bears could really put together a good season here if the quarterback play is what it could be.
I agree. I think they're very talented. Now, Leon, the sky's the limit for the Lions, obviously, in the top 3 offense here. But where do you see the Bears as a whole here? I mean, obviously, quarterback play is kind of the big issue. But overall, I think the Bears have a pretty talented team. What about you?
I actually agree with Matt as far as the offense is concerned. As usual, Chicago's issue with any sport is offense, but Trubisky, like, their offense wasn't bad last year. It's just that Trubisky was awful with accuracy.
Yep.
You know, Mooney, Robinson. If he was just accurate, the schemes were correct. But you know, I do think their offense will be much better this year as well. The defense. And this is where the change in defensive lines for both the Lions and the Vikings really come into play. I'm sorry, the offensive lines. Being able to protect against Khalil Mack and Smith and those guys. So maybe their defense takes a step back, but you know, how you got to score to win, and I think Chicago will score a lot more this year than they did last year.
You'd hope so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't love the schedule, which I have pulled up on the screen. I mean, it's not the worst schedule ever. I think it's doable. But to me, I have a hard time thinking the Bears could be, so much more than what they were last year, which, still wasn't horrible, but it was still painfully, making the playoffs by the skin of your teeth. And 9-7, okay, you made the playoffs. No one's taking that away from you. But for me to see them take the next step, it would really be up to the quarterback play. And if Justin Fields turns into the second coming of Deshaun Watson, then we're talking about a Super Bowl team here. But that remains to be seen. Matt, you're looking at the schedule. You knew the schedule already, so I'm not worried about you. I'm going to get to your prediction at the end. Lucas, I'm going to start with you. The Vikings fan, you're pretty optimistic about the Vikings, not so much about the Lions. The Bears are also the team to me that could be in the thick of it with the Vikings, given a situation where Aaron Rodgers isn't the quarterback of the Packers.
Yeah, absolutely. I basically would have the Bears and the Vikings around the same win total this year, with or without Aaron Rodgers. Without, I think that they will be battling it out for the division, maybe even January 9th there at the bank in Minneapolis. But yeah, I'd put them right around 10-11 wins as well. I could see them really taking off this year if everything comes together perfectly. I don't know if it'll necessarily do that, but I do think it's definitely a solid team, them and Minnesota. But like all these teams, I mean, all playing the same, essentially the same schedule. This is a tough schedule for this division now that I'm really looking at it all around. So I don't know. I'll put them comfortably there at 10-11 wins like I did Minnesota.
All right, Leon. Obviously the Lions are winning the division at 12-5. We don't have to worry about that. But where do the Bears land here for you?
Now the Bears are one team where I think they have maybe besides the Packers, as far as ends of the spectrum. Bears I think can actually win the division, or they can actually be the worst. Like you said, it all depends on Fields. But low one in the spectrum, I give them 6 wins. High end, I give them 13.
Okay, that's a pretty wide range there. The definition of a low floor, high ceiling type thing. All right, Matt, I'm sorry. I'm invested in the Bears stinking this year. I need the Bears to get me a top 10 pick. If you do not know, the Giants have the Bears first round pick in 2022, and I will be there in Vegas to see it. So I need the Bears. I'm not asking top 5. Just give me a top 10. So therefore, I say 6 wins. Give me 6 wins, get the 10th pick, and I'm happy. 6-11 for the Bears. What do you say, Matt?
I just noticed something on the schedule. And, anyone on the panel or anybody watching, I don't think I've ever seen this in an NFL schedule ever before, but they do not play consecutive road games or consecutive home games at all. Weird. I have never seen that.
I think that happened to the Giants a few years ago, but I don't know if it was exactly that. Like a bye might have mixed them up, so that might have been the caveat there. But yeah, it's very weird to see the balance of this.
Yeah, so all right, I'm taking a look at it. God, I didn't realize they had so many West Coast trips. Like they go to Los Angeles and they have to go to Vegas 3 weeks later. Then they have to go to Seattle later in the year. So that's going to be kind of weird. And then they got Tampa Bay at Tampa. They have some very losable games and they have some very winnable games. It's trying to identify what's in between. I'm going to pull the full 180 here. I'm going to say Justin Fields is the real deal. Mm-hmm. And where he gets inserted will depend on their record. So I'm going to say, let's go with week 4 against the Raiders. Fields gets put in. The Bears are going to go 12-5 and finish second in the division.
There it is. There's the old bear down Matt Bushnell for you. Knew you'd come around eventually and buy it out of the Bears.
You know what? And I'll say this much. I don't think it matters if Rodgers plays or doesn't for the Packers for in the Bears spectrum, because I could see the Bears losing twice to the Packers anyway. It's just one of those things. I hate the stupid hex on the Packers with the Bears, but we'll see.
All right. Now the moment you've all been waiting for. The favorite team in the division, the one that you guys all love so much. Honestly, the standard of this division, I'm sorry to say, but the Green Bay Packers are the reigning NFC North champions. They were a couple plays away from representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, which we've talked about so many times. But now they are in the middle of an uncertain future surrounding Aaron Rodgers, the 3-time MVP, the Super Bowl champion MVP, the reigning MVP, really. I mean, that's also pretty important to know that he was amazing last year. But on draft night, when all of us live in this group, Aaron Rodgers came out and said, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be traded, or I'm going to retire. I'm going to go host Jeopardy. I want Brian Gutekunst fired, or I'm gone. 2 months later, we're still kind of here. He didn't report to the camp. He is going to be fined by the team. And it feels like the Packers are calling his bluff. And if he doesn't show up, guess what? It's going to be either Jordan Love or it's going to be Blake Bortles, which is a big difference in your seasons here. I'm going to operate as if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, because as of now, he is. I know that he's not there taking snaps. I'm not worried about that. If he shows up the day before week 1 and says, all right, I'm back, I'm not worried about Aaron Rodgers. I'm just not. Until that day happens, I'm just going to assume number 12 is playing quarterback. With that said, he is going to help them, and the Packers are going to win the division once again. And they have still a stacked roster. They have Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard. I mean, go down the list. Their offense, very talented. The defense, underrated, as Matt Bushnell said earlier. I really like the pass rushers. They got the Smiths in there, Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander. They have players on defense as well. I guess I can't just bypass it and say, hey, Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, because, yeah, it's easy for me to say, but it doesn't mean that's the case. I'll start and just say, for example, week 1 comes around and number 12 isn't there. We get Jordan Love. Maybe it's Blake Bortles, but I'm just going to assume Jordan Love. Leon, I'll start with you. Any sort of report that you've seen so far says Jordan Love's not really impressing too many people. You have any faith at all in Jordan Love? Is the long question short?
I mean, no. I this is where I'd have more faith in Kirk Cousins. So, no. Which goes to the point: if you have no faith in Jordan Love, what was the GM doing in the beginning? Drafting him, knowing what you have in Rodgers. So. I don't. I think Rodgers starts week 1, but I have no faith in Love. I'll be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously traded up for him. I think that's how they got into the situation to begin with. But Lucas, I feel like you have a better, thumb on the whole college football landscape here. What do you just see from Jordan Love at all, if anything, that make you kind of say, hey, he could have success in the NFL?
I don't really know what the Packers saw a ton. I think the whole thing, they just fumbled the whole thing so badly. Bringing him in, I mean, that's how you get to this point anyway. You needed some help, and you had a decent pick there, and you could have given Rodgers a weapon. You could have shored up the defense a little bit. Anything other than picking his obvious predecessor at his age and everything. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, especially if you compare it to what you have now, and the fact that Rodgers was at least a huge factor in pushing you over. I know we say the roster is pretty decent, but yeah, I don't really see a ton here at all. I think that they've really screwed the pooch here just by picking Jordan Love and then being in this situation now, you know.
I think it's a lot of arrogance in the Packers organization, and I don't blame them for it. But you go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, you think, why can't we do it once again? I mean, this is an organization that has had 3 of the most legendary quarterbacks in the history of football on it, so why not keep the train going? But Matt Bushnell, I think that train sort of stops now with Jordan Love. I don't know why anyone should have optimism about this guy.
There's so many issues here. I want to go back to what Mark Murphy said, last week, I think it was a shareholders meeting, and he, unprompted, no one asked him, quoted Ted Thompson, who can't even defend himself because, rest in peace, Ted Thompson died. He's, saying that Aaron Rodgers is a complicated fella, and you think about things that you don't do to a guy that is prickly, sensitive, has rabbit ears, and you're going to go do that. Like, this is how you lose a quarterback 101. This is the divorce proceedings. They've done everything they could possibly do this offseason and last offseason to alienate the most talented quarterback they've ever had in their franchise. For better or for worse, however you feel about him, he's better than Favre in so many different areas. So to me, the Jordan Love era is not going to be pleasant for the Packers. This is not a soft landing spot. The reason why I did like Jordan Love coming out of college, not in my wildest dreams would I thought he should have gone in the first round. He was a late 2 who needed to sit for 3 or 4 years to learn an offense and to really get acclimated to it. He's got traits. He's got a killer arm. The guy can throw a football Josh Allen-esque. But there's so many holes mentally with this kid. He played over in Utah, not great competition, so he's over there playing, not great numbers. He had a pretty decent sophomore year, really kind of meh junior year. He's like the opposite of Zach Wilson here. Zach Wilson had a meh sophomore year, really good junior year. So to me, Jordan Love's not ready. He's not ready this year. He won't be ready next year. So you've basically alienated a guy that, you could have given him the moon and he deserved it. If you lose Rodgers, you're probably losing Devontae Adams.
Yep.
And then you start losing other pieces on this team because this team's not nearly as attractive. And we know one thing about the Packers is they don't really go out and spend big money in free agency. They like to build through the draft. That's historically how this team has been built. Without this group, without Aaron Rodgers, and without Devontae Adams, this becomes the 3rd best team in this division, bar none. Jordan Love will sink this ship.
I think it's going to get to the point where if it is the case, you don't have Rodgers or he gets traded or he just retires, whatever, you will see that Blake Bortles is a more competent NFL quarterback right now than Jordan Love is.
Yep.
And you might see a situation where Blake Bortles is playing for them for maybe the entire season. And you don't want to throw Love out there to have his confidence absolutely crushed and to kind of hide him from all of his hide his flaws from the rest of the league. But that's the situation you put yourself in when the Packers front office. That's obviously one issue. Other issues include the offensive line. David Bakhtiari blew his knee out and is your best offensive lineman coming back, and you're wondering if that's going to be a success or not. The rest of the line is okay. It's not great. But it's fine. But Bakhtiari really is the leader of the pack there. And the secondary is solid, but overall, minus the Smith brothers and Gary, I don't love the front of the Packers. If you look at it, it's Dean Lowry, Kenny Clark. And I mean, it's a lot of guys that are just, okay, I need more from that. So Aaron Rodgers masks a lot of issues that the Packers have. As a whole, Leon, I mean, it always seems to be Rodgers and then whatever else. without Rodgers, this team takes a huge step back, right?
Huge step back. No pun intended. But I what you'll have is Adams, running routes like half-heartedly. The connection between Rodgers and Adams is unparalleled, and you'll really feel the difference week one if that would ever happen. To come out publicly and state that I'll go where Rodgers goes, and then have to play week one with Jordan Love. It's a deflating feeling for the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas, sorry, Matt, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just want to point out, and, we could take a look at, some numbers here, but against the Vikings last year, week one, it was 43-34. Without Aaron Rodgers, that's a loss, in my opinion. So that changes things. I mean, and then they played the Saints in week 3 and they won 37-30. Without Aaron Rodgers, that's a loss. And then the following week, I'm not going to do the Houston game, but they did lose to the Vikings 22-28. That was a Dalvin Cook explosion. But there's games here you see that without Aaron Rodgers, it goes from a win to a loss.
Absolutely. Lucas, obviously, Rodgers has been a thorn in your side as a Vikings fan, and honestly, all of your teams. He's been just a menace. I don't know what the floor is at this point without Rodgers, but I'm looking at top 5, maybe top 3 pick. It could be that bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it when he's been injured a couple times. I know he broke his collarbone and some, and a couple other maybe small injuries here and there. But yeah, I would keep them very low, 2-3 wins. I mean, I don't know. One of us predict that even without Rodgers, the Packers are still better than the Lions. I would even put them, but I think even the Lions. I think losing Rodgers is too much. It's a mental thing too, even outside of what he obviously adds, talent wise. But yeah, I would 2-3 wins. I don't know. I'd have to really look at their schedule. But yeah, I would have zero faith in the Packers without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and like Bushnell said, they're going to lose Davante Adams too if they lose Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Davante Adams has been pretty adamant about that he wants out if Rodgers is out. And obviously they don't have to oblige, but he could easily sit out. I mean, that's a thing players do now. Matt, I'm having a little bit of internet issues on my end. Can you pull up the Packers schedule for us and share your screen for me?
Yep. Just
look,
give me a few moments here.
This is a situation that unfortunately on June 15th, when we're doing this division preview, we don't have all the answers for. A lot of these predictions are with the caveat of number 12, is he there or not? So if something happens with Aaron Rodgers and he's not there, obviously this division becomes a lot more wide open. But if Rodgers comes back, angry Aaron Rodgers, we saw last year, is a different man. I mean, he just lights the league on fire. And as Leon said, the connection he has with Davante Adams, that 1-2 punch is tops in the league. Like, they are so good together. I mean, Adams finds the end zone every week, if not multiple times a week. So that connection is so valuable to the team. And I feel like Rodgers' frustration is boiled over by not winning in the NFC championship game against the Bucs. They had a chance on third down to score. Rodgers, instead of running it in, throws it out of bounds, thinking they have another shot at fourth down. And then Matt LaFleur decides to kick a field goal. You're down 8. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Whatever. That probably did not help the case for Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers can say whatever he would like to say about this whole situation. You cannot lie to me and tell me it has nothing to do with Jordan Love. Them trading up to draft Jordan Love implied that they were thinking about moving on from Aaron Rodgers. And that obviously pissed off Aaron Rodgers to the point where, you don't think I'm that good anymore. You're ready to move on and you think I'm Brett Favre all over again? Let me show you that I'm better than that guy ever was. And he did. And he won another MVP. But he's a petty guy. And look, I know we made fun of Mark Murphy, but he's right. He's a complicated fella to deal with. We've always said this. This guy has always been sort of a diva, sort of been dramatic, always been like we're always accepting of a diva-like behavior when it's a wide receiver, but when it's the CEO, quarterback of your franchise, it's a little bit more to deal with. Now, Aaron Rodgers has earned any right to act however way he wants. I'm not saying that. But in general, Aaron Rodgers is a little bit of a complicated guy. Matt, where are we on the schedule here?
Yeah, just give me a second. I'm pulling it up now.
Okay. because all these predictions we're about to make are 100% on number 12. And I think, unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to stand here. And Leon and Lucas, I don't know where your fluctuation is going to be here, but for me, it's probably close to 10 games of a difference whether Aaron Rodgers plays or not. Leon, is it that big for you? Because am I exaggerating there?
No, it sounds about right. They were the biggest polarizing team I had in the division besides Chicago, but yeah, lottery team to potential Super Bowl contenders. It's just that much.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas, they were 13-3 last year. Obviously, 3-13 feels like a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, 8-9 game difference. I mean, that's what we're kind of looking at here.
Yeah, I don't see them winning more than 5 games without Aaron Rodgers. And with Aaron Rodgers, I put them right at 12-4, 13-3 again. Right. Or 13-4, whatever we're doing this year. But I'd say it's got to be a 10-game difference because they go Super Bowl contender to top 5 pick without him. Absolutely.
I think.
All right, Matt, you got the schedule up. Let's see it.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple things about this. I don't know why we're assuming that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back. I think this is definitive. I don't see Aaron Rodgers. To me, he's that dude that's just going to say, fuck it. I made this amount of money in my career. I don't need this. He just got engaged to a young, budding superstar movie actress. He doesn't need the money. There's no guarantee that Jeopardy is going to be there for him. But this dude has other interests than football. It's not like he's sole dependent on football. And there was a story out today where he would actually save money if he retired as opposed to if he actually played. So there's things here where, once you break down the numbers, Aaron Rodgers does not need the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers need Aaron Rodgers, and they're doing everything they can to destroy that.
I agree with you. There's no way that the Rodgers would be better off playing in a bigger city, most likely. I mean, he's playing in Green Bay, Wisconsin, for God's sake. The Packers absolutely need Aaron Rodgers, and the only reason I'm assuming that is because that's where we're at right now. I mean, he's not on another team. He's not officially retired, so I'm just operating with that. It doesn't mean anyone else has to do that, but that's just how I am going to proceed with this. Obviously, any predictions we make are going to come with that caveat, but the schedule here, we can't see it in full, but it's similar to all the other ones. Obviously, they get Houston on the schedule, I believe. Look, I mean, you guys can go ahead and make your predictions, but if you want to say with Rodgers and without Rodgers, we can do it that way. I think that's probably the safest route to go. But we're going to start, Lucas. Let's go with you first. With Rodgers, without Rodgers, what's your Packers predictions for 2021?
Well, I'll still get both predictions, obviously, but I will say, and to piggyback off what Matt said, I think he's gone too. I really do. I think that this is the one guy who will dig his heels in, and it does not, he will make everyone else look bad, make himself look. He doesn't care. I mean, he's not happy in this situation. I will say though, if for some reason he's back, I will put them right at, I guess it would be 13-4, 14-3, really, really high end. But without him, 3-14, 4-13, right in that range. I'd definitely put him in there. 3-4 wins without Rodgers, 13 or 14 with him.
It's unbelievable. I don't think we've ever had this sort of this situation coming into a season like this before. Leon, you're our famed Packers hater. Coining the phrase F12. I want to get your predictions here with Rodgers, without Rodgers.
Yeah, 12 seems to be making quite a stir no matter where what conference you're in. But I think with Rodgers, I actually think they struggle even with him. The lack of, you could say the lack of training camp, but I still think mentally he won't be all there. Probably check out if he's still in that uniform, but I don't think he's back. So with Rodgers, I'd give him 10 wins without 2.
Wow. I love it, because to me, you lose Aaron Rodgers, you also lose Davante Adams. And I think to your point, too, say Rodgers shows up again, comes back, maybe there's a whole disconnect with him and the team in general. And they're like, you know what? Is this our guy? Does he really believe in us? Is he really one of us? Is he in this with us? Because I'd be questioning that, too, if I was a guy on the Packers right now. Like, maybe this isn't the right guy, anymore. With Rodgers, I'll say 12-5. I think that's a decent, solid NFC North winning record. Without Rodgers, I think it all blows up on them. Blake Bortles, Jordan Love, wherever you go with this team, I have a hard time envisioning more than 4 wins. So I'll say 4-13 without Rodgers. Matt Bushnell, I assume you. So you give us your with Rodgers, without Rodgers, and then you give us a Rodgers prediction in general. What do you got here?
So I think I'm putting my line in the sand, just like Ron here. I'm not even going to give you a prediction with Rodgers, because I think he's gone. I really do. I don't feel it necessary to imagine a scenario, because when your GM openly kind of questions your ability by making moves, Rodgers wants to feel like he's a part of the Packers. He wants to be talked to. Aaron Rodgers referenced Jordy Nelson. I forget the other wide receiver. I think it was Jake Kumaro, where he wanted Jake Kumaro on the roster. And then the only thing that you really say is that he's a complicated fella, the president. And here's the thing about players. They don't like management. They generally don't like ownership. And once they see their guy being talked about in this manner, it brings a wedge. Now you have like a guy like Davante Adams, like, oh, what's this team going to say about me when I want to get paid, or I don't like my situation? What's David Bakhtiari going to say? Like, oh, I'm coming back from injury. Are they going to value me the same? Mm-hmm. Management is driving this wedge, and Rodgers is their guy. I mean, he's not the greatest leader, but you can't tell me, and any of us that have played football at any level, there's guys that you play with that are players. They're ballers. They can go out there and play. And then there's guys that you see sitting the bench that they can play, but for whatever reason, it's more personal. And then the guys that are sitting on the bench and they have guys playing in front of them, you start questioning that. This team knows Jordan Love ain't that dude. They can tell he ain't ready. I mean, God bless him, he made the NFL. Not very many people can say that, but this team knows. So I don't think there's going to be any divide. I think if Rodgers is back with them, hey, they're going to ride with him, because they know he's the NFL MVP. He knows they're going to get paid more money with him. Without Rodgers, this team's 5-12. And that's what it is. It's a 5-12 football team, even with that defense, because there's too many games where Aaron Rodgers pulled something out of his ass and saved them. There's so many games you see where the refs throw 80 flags just to protect him. These refs ain't protecting Jordan Love. Who's Jordan Love? Maybe they treat him like Mitch Trubisky. Oh, you got your head knocked off? Get up, kid. This whole situation for the Packers is stupid. And for as much as they want to say, oh, we're Green Bay, we're title town, you're a bunch of fucking idiots. For what you did to a franchise quarterback who's changed everything about your franchise. I'm not sure if some of you guys are old enough to remember the 80s Packers, but I am. That team was a hot pile of flaming shit. Even in the early 90s, that team was fucking garbage. And you know what happened? You lucked into Brett Favre, because the Falcons drafted him. They didn't want him. They traded him for peanuts, pretty much. So then you got your quarterback in Favre, and then you were able to bench Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. You had McCarthy and fix those mechanics. You know what, Green Bay? You deserve this drama, because as much shit as you talk and you want to puff your chest, we're Green Bay. I cannot wait to see you again without a fucking franchise quarterback. Suck on that.
Oh, we love a good rant from Matt Bushnell here on the Audible, and what better way to end than that? So there you have it, the NFC North prediction show. Going to be interesting to see how it shakes out here, and I kind of hope Rodgers isn't there just to have some parity in the division. So, Leon, you have a playoff game coming up for your Brooklyn Nets. It looks like James Harden's going to give it a go. Why don't you tell us about your show the next time you guys are coming on?
Thank you for having me on. Covered last night, the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. We'll go again this Friday night. Hopefully Brooklyn get this win. A lot of intriguing matchups going along in the league, all tied up at 2. Suns took care of the Nuggets. Me and my good man, Jacob Moses, Friday night, step back, 8 p.m., Basketball Life. You guys know where it is.
Be sure to check that out. Playoffs have been great. I mean, I love that you're going to get a champion that you haven't seen in a long time, or maybe a first-time champ too. The NBA is on fire right now. Lucas, thanks, man, so much for coming on. This is your 3rd time on the show. I mean, you're officially a recurring guest. We love having you on. Any parting words for our audience?
School Vikings, 2021 Super Bowl champs. We will revisit this. We're all going to laugh at me all season. I will laugh at myself at the end of the season when I've made a complete fool of myself yet again. But yeah, School Vikings, that's all I got to say.
All right, Lucas, you're always a pleasure to have on. Thank you so much. And Matt Bushnell, I will see you next week for our AFC North divisional breakdown. We're going to go back and forth, AFC, NFC in the divisions. That is a loaded division as well. We'll see about guests when we get closer to that date. But this has been a pleasure. You know what? We normally plug all the shows, but I feel like we're running out of time. We've done this for a little while now, so I'm just going to wrap it up here. On behalf of Leon Tompkins, Lucas Albert, Matt Bushnell, I'm Randy Hammond saying see you guys next week. Stay safe.